friends, welcome back to my channel. Today, we're going to be talking about more palettes on the chopping block. My initial palettes on the chopping block video that I did and then a follow-up, and then as I was going back through my collection, I was like, you know what? There are some more palettes that need a closer assessment. So I'm going to go ahead and talk to you guys about the palettes that are in my collection that I'm going to test out on the weekends only and be able to better assess whether or not they can stay in my collection or not. Instead of doing just one update, because there are a lot of palettes in this one, I'll probably do a couple of follow-ups as I figure out which ones can stay and which ones can go. But we're going to start with the first palette that prompted this whole reevaluation, and that is the Reveal palette. If it's surprising you, please be aware it's surprising me. When I went to my bachelorette party at Universal, I had to fly, and even though I was checking a suitcase, I didn't want to bring my Lorac Mega Pro palette and then something else to couple with it. So I remember thinking about how much I liked the Revealed palette, and so I brought it with me. And as you can see, like, I have some decent use throughout some of these shades, but I gotta tell you, when I was using this in Florida, I felt like the shades were kind of blending to nothing, and like the looks were all kind of muddying together, and there wasn't a lot of longevity. So I don't know if this has just maybe gone bad and that's why it's not performing to what I remember it being, or perhaps I am more like educated on what I like in palettes now and like the quality of this is no longer up to that par. I'm not sure what it is, but I gotta figure it out and decide whether or not it can stay in my life. I'm also bringing back the Revealed Smoky. This I did not really get a chance to play with, but I definitely want to decide whether or not this can stay or go. Looking at this, like a lot of the shades in here, but I feel like every time I go to pull this out, I'm overwhelmed with what to do with this because there are a lot of shades that are very similar to each other, and I feel like a lot of these colors will muddy together, so I never actually pulled the trigger, but it's time to figure out whether or not this gets to stay in my collection. This is the Ulta Jenny Fox Miss Fabulous collaboration that they did. I used to be a really big fan of her channel, and then I just kind of got sick of the like disappearing and coming back, so I unsubscribed. But I pulled this out, and I recall liking it when I had first gotten it and using it a little bit, but I haven't really touched it since then, so I kind of have to decide if I want to keep this. A lot of this reminds me of shades in my Lorac Mega Pro palette, and so I'm not sure if I like these enough to want to keep them alongside those shades in that palette, so I'm going to do some playing, figuring it out, and ultimately make a decision about it. I also have this somewhat random, not an eyeshadow palette, but this is the Pure Sculptor. It came in a BoxyCharm. This is meant to be like a highlighting bronzer, like contour palette, and I knew immediately my face was not going to play well with this, and so I kept it thinking like I might like it as an eyeshadow palette, but part of me is like, I have a lot of shades like this in eyeshadow palettes, so I need to keep this for that purpose, and part of me is like, what if it's magical? What if you love it? Who knows? And I haven't actually played with it. I've only ever swatched it, so I have to actually decide if any of these shades are shades that I want to keep. I don't imagine myself keeping all four of them unless they're super magical, but I would probably just pop out the ones I want to keep and put it into my ColourPop magnetic palette, but I gotta at least figure that out. Maybe they're all terrible and I don't like them as eyeshadows. I just don't know. I have two drugstore palettes. They are both from L'Oreal. I have the L'Oreal La Palette Nude 1 and 2. The 1 I have used. I gave it like a solid month, and I do recall liking it, but it's very neutral base, which is kind of right up my alley, but I don't remember if it was worth it or not to keep it and want to pan, because that's kind of where I'm at with palettes. Like, I have to really decide, like, is this a palette that if I wanted to pan it, would I want to do that? And if the answer is no, probably silly for me to actually keep it. Yes, I mean, not every palette needs to be pan necessarily, but if I don't like it enough to want to even consider that, then is it really worth it? Probably not. I also have the La Palette Nude 2. I don't even think I've ever used this. Like, I don't even think I've ever really like swatched it, which is bizarre because I do like a lot of the shades in here, and it's very neutral, but I feel like it's kind of pushing the envelope a bit more compared to the one, which is basically a naked copycat. So I don't know, I feel like I liked the pigmentation of the number 1, but I just don't remember enough about them. So they're officially in here. And then the last thing I have is a blush palette. I don't have too many blush palettes in my collection because I learned real fast after buying a couple that I don't need multiple blush palettes. And the other problem with blush palettes is that I can't store them where my other blushes are, so they're kind of like always out of sight, out of mind. And I was digging back through my palette collection and I was like, wait a second. I have this Tarte Pin Up Girl Amazonian Clay 12-Hour Blush Palette. It had some cute bobby pins that I actually do wear sometimes, but when you open it up, you have 5 blushes in here, and it's basically like almost like a clutch purse with a nice mirror. I just have to decide if I like these shades in here. I hadn't really used them, and if I actually want to keep it or if I'm better off decluttering it. I definitely don't think I could ever pan an entire blush palette, but if I don't like enough of the tones in here, I may as well let this go and find a new home and just focus more on the blushes that I actually have. I feel like we moved real fast in there, but I have in total 7 palettes that I am figuring out whether they can stay or whether they got to be kicked out and go to a new home for this second round of palettes on the chopping block. I'll probably wait until I have 3 or 4 figured out, and then I'll come back and share my thoughts. So I expect to do 2 updates on this. I just think it will take me too long to wait until I've decided about all 7, but that's my game plan. If you guys have any thoughts about any of these palettes, let me know down below in the comments, and I'll talk to you in my next video real soon. Bye.